So, it turns out that the least precarious way to walk through this town is in the middle of the street on the cobblestones because the sidewalks are just crazy fucking icy. And I almost killed myself like 7 times already.
Anywhere you go, give it all.
I ended up in Riga on kind of a half-assed whim. To be honest, neither Riga nor the country of Latvia were ever on my radar other than a vague notion of it being very north, very cold, and formerly part of the Soviet Union. I truly had no idea what was in store for me, neither the delights nor the dangers that were to come. Let me share the details of the experience with you. And if you're so inclined, hit the subscribe button. That really helps the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. So, here we go. Welcome to Living in Detail.
Good morning. This is my first full day in Riga, and I am slowly, precariously walking down the very, very icy sidewalk. And so far, I have to say, it's beautiful. Beautiful and silent. There's like no noise. There's no traffic. There's no honking. There are a few birds actually now, but I didn't hear them earlier. And yeah, I'm excited. I already absolutely love this town. It is the old architecture, but it's incredible coming from Paris because, relatively speaking, there are zero tourists. Like there are tourists, but the street is like basically wide open.
I'm not big on maps, so I wander without having really any idea where I'm going, which means that every time I hit a crossroads, I get to guess whether to go left, right, or straight ahead. The architecture I stumble across reminds me equally of 1800s London, 1700s Prague, or some out-of-time Game of Thrones set. Basically, all the magic of every variation of Europe in one place.
So, it turns out that the least precarious way to walk through this town is in the middle of the street on the cobblestones because the sidewalks are just crazy fucking icy. And I almost killed myself like 7 times already. So that is my first morning feedback. I've only had 1 espresso this morning. I'm on my way to find a much better tasting one because the one at the hotel truly sucked. But that's okay because the hotel itself is affordable enough to sleep in.
I'm not the first one to discover Regensis, but I will add myself to the list of adoring fans. It was toasty warm inside, and I was basically the only person there. I have to confess, I have no idea what I got, but it was delicious. It had like apples and raisins in it, and it was like a donut-y, flaky crust, and the latte was so much better than at the hotel. I was in 7th heaven.
It might be that the cold is a little bit intimidating for people. But in fact, compared to Paris, this is actually a manageable cold because it's a dry cold. So as long as you're bundled, and believe me, I have like a wool undertop, a wool sweater, a huge coat, scarf, wools, like everything is covered that could possibly be covered. But I actually feel quite cozy. So that is reassuring.
I really was nervous about how cold it might be, because that was the only thing I knew about Riga, was that it was cold. It was so much fun to feel completely prepared to then be able to wander the city slowly and not worry about freezing my ass off.
Here's something I noticed. A lot of the sidewalks are taped off with like red, police tape or danger tape or construction tape. And I thought at first it was that there's a lot of construction going on. And then I realized, as I almost killed myself this morning, that no, it's to prevent people from walking on those particular sidewalks because they don't get as much sun, and so they're extremely slippery. Like, I can't even express the danger because it's like black ice and you can't see it, and it's just like death-defying. So they've just taped off a bunch of the sidewalks all over town to prevent idiot tourists like me from breaking their necks, which is very sweet. So walking in the middle of the street and walking on the snowpack is actually far safer than walking on the cobblestones. It's not the prettiest sight in the world, as you can see behind me, but it is showing care.
However, I never really lived in a place that got this amount of snow. I wasn't aware of all these things that you have to be aware of. Dodging icicles so that you're not impaled when one falls and hits your head. Like, they actually can kill you. It never occurred to me. Or the cleaning off of the roofs. Not something it ever occurred to me would need to be done. And I'm grateful, actually, that I don't have to do this, but I'm very appreciative of those who do.
This behind me is my favorite store.
The owner is this fabulous woman who was like a lawyer and then just got sick of it and decided to open a store, which only carries products that are made in Latvia. And then the back, there's a secret cafe. I tested this delicious peppermint cranberry tea, which I'd never thought could be a combination before, and made me feel a bit like I was Alice in Wonderland because the tea came out pink. I had a lot actually to write about and reflect about. I learned a lot about Riga and Latvia, and it reminded me so much of Prague in the 90s when I lived there, that it brought up a lot of memories and nostalgia. But at the same time, this is definitely the 21st century. The shadow of Russia is still very much present. The war in Ukraine is on everyone's mind. The threat of a return of the Soviet Union is not like a fantasy or a crazy thought. It's just not so long ago for them that the Soviet Union had control over this area. And so there's real concern, like everyone's really watching the news and talking about what could happen. They're really proud of being Latvian and of having created this phenomenal country and being part of Europe.
Riga feels very innocent. It feels like a small town, and everyone is super friendly, and it just feels innocent, naive almost, because there's a quaintness to it that I feel like Paris doesn't have. Paris is sophisticated. Paris is like a sophisticated, wise woman in her mid-40s drinking a glass of really high-quality red wine. And Riga is like a 4 or 5-year-old who has the innocent joy of discovery and is still deeply connected to nature and to the true depths of contentment. That's my take on Riga. And so I'm sure that there are going to be some Latvians who see this who are like, what the fuck are you tripping on? But that's my perception. So here we go, more exploring.
It's a little easier to understand my association of Riga with a child the more you see its quirky side. The Cat House is one of the most famous landmarks in town. Multiple stories exist for why the architect put black cats on the top of his building. I just find them cool, as are so many of the details I noticed as I wandered. If you're a lover of heraldry, or Art Nouveau and Art Deco, or just the fanciful and clever design of architecture for the hell of it, you will love it in Riga. And if you're into details, this is like manna from heaven. Everywhere you look, you're gonna find something that is incredibly charming or esoteric or meaningful. Everything tells a story. If you're more of a shopper or just need an excuse to warm up a bit, I've even found another fabulous store that you should definitely visit. Yes, okay, I'm obsessed with paper stores. It's a thing. 'Cause what if I just wanna be with you? I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Honestly, I can't remember if you love me.
The lovely lady at that fabulous paper store is studying marketing at the moment, and before she studied graphic design, so she's kind of in the perfect place as she's finishing her studies. And the owner of the store, her name is Latte. I probably pronounced it wrong, but that's why it's called Latti's. And the logo is her little dog. They focus on leather goods and paper, so like leather-bound books and things like that. It's just the most charming store. And the charm is just as prevalent when the sun goes down, which is around 4 o'clock at this time of year. The only difference, the charm turns a bit gothic and bizarre at times. Bizarre enough that I'm driven to eat some cake. In this case, poppy seed cheesecake. Delicious. All in all, a day well spent. I'm so tired. I have barely slept all night because the bombs keep waking me up. They're not real bombs, they're snow bombs, and I wish I could capture them to give you a sense of literally how ground shaking they are. But it's because the temperature has risen from like -2 to like 4 degrees, which
in my Parisian world is still considered cold, but in this Riga world, it's considered, I think, probably like tropical or something because the reaction of the snow is insane. These shelves of snow and ice that have been on the roofs because previously there were some massive snowstorms. So there's just been tons of snow. It like calves off, kind of like glaciers or icebergs or something. Like whole chunks of snow and ice come falling down off the rooftops. It's so fucking loud and startling that it wakes you up, kind of like a bomb going off. And I mean, not to be like facetious or to minimize the trauma of actually real bombs going off, because I know that's a whole different thing, and there are too many people in the world right now who are actually being left awake and dying because of real bombs. But in this very moment, in the middle of the night, I'm feeling traumatized by snow bombs. After a day playing tourist, I wanted to see more of like real life in Riga, so I ventured just to the outside edge of Old Town to one of the largest food markets in actually all of Europe. Housed in these huge hangars built in the 1920s for military airships like the Hindenburg. You could literally live here with the pharmacy and the food court and the surprisingly high quality fruits and vegetables. A lot more beautiful than what I see in the Paris markets, to be honest. There is a preference for pickled stuff, I noticed, which is absolutely not my thing, but fascinating to look at. My favorite section in the market, however, is a bit macabre, actually, the fish market. It's a morbid venture into a death zone. I've never been confronted so violently with what human consumption does to the animal kingdom. And all of this makes me eventually want to flee to someplace more quiet and calm, away from the taint of the modern world. So off I go to find a bit of nature.
So I have to say that this is feeling a little insane. I've decided to go to the open air museum and I'm not sure at all where I'm going. And I'm now walking in the middle of the road about half an hour outside of Riga. And the sign said to go in this direction. And there is nothing. There is nothing around me. And to be honest, I am a little freaked out because obviously there is no one around and it's going to get dark in about 20 minutes. So if I don't find this place in like the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be lost in the dark, and it might as well be the fucking forest. Like, I realize that there are houses like right here and stuff, and there are probably people who live there, but I don't know if they speak English. I'm gonna continue to walk down this road and see if I see anybody or see anything that resembles a museum or a tourist destination or anything. Because I also discovered on the bus out here that as soon as you leave the center, the number of people who speak impeccable English drops significantly, and the level of friendliness also drops significantly. So I'm hoping that I'm not going to have to rely on the kindness of strangers in like subarctic weather in the dark. We shall see. Adventures used to be so easy for me. I used to do crazy ass shit in my 20s and never once hesitated or questioned it. Now, in my 50s, all of the scenarios of how things could go dreadfully wrong run through my brain, and that is currently what is going on. Like, I'm envisioning being found in the thaw of spring, cut up into pieces. And yes, I realize I'm walking next to a residential area, but, you know, the mind is a funny thing. It is literally 20 seconds later, and I have found a parking lot. And in the parking lot, there's that nice family back there. They are having their like mid-afternoon snack out of the back of their van. And I asked them if they knew where the open air museum was. And it turns out this is the parking lot for the open air museum. And the open air museum was about, I don't know, maybe 200 feet in front of me in my last moments of panic. So you see, this is just an example of how you should never listen to your brain when it starts spinning out. Guys, this is exactly what I have been wanting to find ever since we landed in Riga. As we were flying in, I saw the forest and it just called to me. And while this is a museum and a park and it's not the wild, it feels a lot closer to it than the center of the city, which I'm loving, but coming from Paris, I'm really craving this kind of winter wonderland experience. And since I got here in the very end of the day, I am literally, I think, the only person here. It's about 20 minutes to closing time. I've kind of squeezed in and I'm not going to be able to do much, but it's so cool because even though this is a man-made enclave, it feels like I'm in the middle of the forest without having to be in the middle of the forest, and there's nobody else here. So the only sounds are the crunching of my feet on the snow and the constant dripping. There's just this constant sound of melting and of dropping. I don't know if you can hear it. It's kind of like the snap, crackle, pop of Rice Krispies in milk. But it's pretty freaking amazing. I haven't seen something like this in a really long time, like since my childhood and growing up in Colorado where there was snow in the winter. I've been thinking about that a lot. So I think that's one of the reasons why coming out to really see the snow has been calling me so much, and why I felt like I really wanted to make sure that I could find a way to get out into semi-nature despite not having planned it. And this ethnographic museum, that's where I am, the ethnographic museum on the outskirts of Riga, and it houses a lot of like old buildings like the one behind me, because the old architecture was a lot of wood. But you don't see much of it in Riga because they passed a law where they couldn't build or rebuild in wood. And so if anything burned down, it got rebuilt in stone or brick. And I guess a lot of shit got burned down because there's no wood visible really in Riga. So it's just coming out here to see these buildings in this ethnographic museum where you see kind of the traditional architecture that was in place and the thatch roof. And what's cool, you can see the thatching. You can see the snow, how thick it is. And then under the snow, you see the moss thatch and the thatching. And then, of course, all the icicles, which are going to drop any time now as things continue to melt. It's just so cool. I really miss these signs of winter, these signs from my childhood. I've been thinking a lot about how I grew up, and a big part of how I grew up at this time of year was snow. I love this. I literally feel like I'm going back in time or channeling Jonah Jinton or somebody. Oh, this may be my favorite thing ever. In Riga, in the snow. I can't imagine coming here in the summer. Like, it just wouldn't have the same effect. Can we just take a moment to absolutely fall in love with this windmill? I mean, seriously. It's freaking amazing. I don't know about you, but like, it's so cool. I kind of love it. I kind of want to move in. The nice thing about being alone in this park is I feel like I'm discovering everything just for myself. The odd thing about being all alone here is it feels like I could get lost and nobody would know. Which is totally not true, aside from like I could fall on my ass. And yeah, just ahead of me there's like a wooden rampy thing that looks super fucking slippery, and since I have back issues, I think I'm gonna go beside it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this may not look that treacherous, but it feels very, very treacherous. Oh my god, I'm scared. I'm scared. I am being overly cautious. And oh my god, I also realized I'm stepping in snow that is probably far deeper than I think it is, because I'm actually sinking quite a bit more than I was anticipating, which means this is probably a really, really fucking stupid decision to come down. Scheiße! I have now fallen exactly as I predicted. Okay, another benefit of not having anybody around is no one gets to see you as you fall on your ass going down a flight of stairs. Yeah, so we're now going back up the stairs, having only gone down 4 steps, because that's enough of an adventure for me today by myself in the wilds of Latvia. It's amazing I survive anything in this planet.
After my adventures in the semi-wilderness of the outskirts of Riga, I decided to reward myself with a little bit of magic. That is, the Black Magic Bar. A great place to do black balsam tasting. Black balsam is the liqueur du jour of Riga. But in my case, it was for a hot chocolate and some bonbons. The hot chocolate is an adventure in and of itself. because you have to show patience by stirring a piece of solid chocolate into hot milk. It's a treat to be savored as a farewell to this incredible city. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Please subscribe and let me know your thoughts. Would you plan a trip to Riga? Tell me in the comments. And until next time, bisous bisous.
Anywhere you go.